Out of nowhere, my parents showed up and started knocking on the car windows. "Did someone ask you for a favor, Dad?"
What are you talking about?
You're always so stubborn. Just quiet down and convince Liam to step down. Let him say that he will resign because his father is more suitable as chairman. Otherwise,
That's right. These people had teamed up with my in-laws to oust my husband, Liam, from his position as the next shaman. And then, suddenly, I noticed my mom holding something like a crowbar in her hand. She swung it high and then crash. The window shattered with a loud noise. They said a suicide note was found in Liam's car, which had fallen off a cliff, and I was stunned for a while. However, a week after the car was found, an envelope arrived by courier with a specified delivery date. Liam, in a panic, I received the envelope and opened it with trembling hands. Inside was a single letter and one key.
Read this without our parents finding out.
Of course, I knew that. But still, he must have wanted to write it.
This was written in advance in case something happened. If I'm still there when you receive this, just laugh and give it back to me. But if I'm not, please, Emma, take what's stored in this locker and immediately flee to my uncle's house.
My seal, Karen, and I looked at each other as we read. Then we grabbed the bare minimum and ran to the main house, where my uncle-in-law lives, to protect ourselves and our children, and to let everyone know what our parents had done. My name is Emma Wilson and I am 34 years old. I wish I could say I'm just a regular housewife, but that was only true until a week ago. Now, I am a widow with 2 children. I was told that it's highly likely my husband, Liam, took his own life. His car had fallen off a cliff, and they say a suicide note was found in the dashboard. I can't believe it. I won't believe it. Because it doesn't make sense. He had no reason to end his life, not by himself. Instead, Liam and I met at our workplace, a resort hotel connected to real estate. That was a place I had always wanted to work. As a child, I was captivated by a large and beautiful hotel I was invited to by my parents' acquaintance. I chose a university that taught important aspects for the tourism industry and worked part-time at a nearby hotel during my student days. And finally, I landed a job at the resort hotel I had always dreamed of. It was a place known for its strict employee training, and I nearly gave up early on. The only reason I managed to keep going was thanks to a senior employee at that time. Among those who couldn't handle it and left, there was someone who kept an eye on me, the one who remained. That person later became my husband, Liam Wilson. After 2 years of dating, we got married. But then I was surprised to learn a fact. Liam was the nephew of the chairman of this real estate group. It seemed that eventually, he was to become a part of the upper management of the group, but at that time, he was still training as an employee at the resort hotel. After our marriage, he moved from the hotel to real estate, starting to show his face around his uncle, the chairman. Originally, this group was a local real estate business that expanded significantly after the war. The current chairman, the second since the group was established, was credited with much of this expansion. Thanks to convincing his parents during the bubble economy period, they suffered less when the bubble burst. Later, they ventured into resort development, which was also steadily progressed. However, things started to get tricky around the chairman after he fell ill last year. This was because the chairman had no biological children to inherit his position. It was Liam whom the chairman nominated as his successor. And this decision shortened Liam's life. I was stunned and struggled to accept the news of Liam's death from the police. During this time, my in-laws kept calling non-stop.
Emma, something terrible has happened to Liam, hasn't it?
Terrible? Is that how they sum up their son's situation with such a simple word?
Hey, Emma, it's going to be hard on your own from now on. Why don't you come to our place?
Right, with Liam gone, it's going to be financially tough, won't it?
My Phil and Mill alternated with such remarks. Feeling angry at their words, I replied, I can't think about the future right now, and hung up. I thought to myself, what now? After all, I had only met these in-laws twice before. Once to announce our marriage and then on the wedding day. Even when our son and daughter were born, they didn't show their faces. Yes, Liam was avoiding his parents. That is, my in-laws. Liam had this to say when I wondered about my in-laws' attitude at the time of our marriage.
Those people are scum who don't even try to work for themselves.
Liam's parents currently hold certain positions within the Wilson Real Estate Group.
But that's just to keep them from doing anything.
Liam told me about his parents. Apparently, unlike his talented uncle, everything they do tends to backfire on the group.
So, they're given a position without work to keep them from meddling too much. They go on trips under the guise of inspections.
Then, didn't you get to travel with them, seeing various places? Liam laughed it off.
Karen and I were always left behind in our vast house.
Liam has a sister named Karen. She married a man with no ties to the group and lives in the city where he works. Liam got along strangely well with Karen's husband, James White. Whenever James was nearby for work, he'd go out of his way to see Liam. Karen would say things like, I'm jealous of the brotherly love, about the way those men interacted. Yes, the siblings got along well. And both had a strained relationship with their parents.
But it's fine for me. Once I got married and moved away, I couldn't care less about them.
Karen said nonchalantly.
But my brother is involved with the group.
And what does that mean?
Our parents know they're the black sheep of the group, so they hate seeing my brother who's doing well.
Is that how it is?
That's how it is with us. But your family is different, right?
Not at all. Indeed. I don't have a good relationship with my own parents, too. Well, it was good when I was a child. As an only daughter, I thought I was loved to a certain extent. But their true nature showed when I was in college.
Quit college and come back home.
I suddenly received such a message. The reason was a marriage proposal. They tried to call me back in my early 20s for that reason. Apparently, a son of a local notable had taken a fancy to me when he came back home. His spoiled wish was something my parents tried to fulfill for their own benefit.
After all we've done to raise you, you should be grateful and do as we say.
I felt the image I had of my parents crumble away inside me. They had raised me, their daughter, wanting something in return. When I realized this, I firmly refused to return home. Then, they stopped sending money for tuition and living expenses. They must have thought that would make me come back. But I refused to return out of sheer stubbornness. I consulted with my professor and looked for ways to continue my studies without being forced back by my parents. It was a desperate struggle until I graduated. Scholarships somehow covered my tuition. The problem was living expenses. I moved out of my secure apartment, sold unused furniture, and moved into an older apartment. Then, my life revolved around college, part-time jobs, and job hunting. I only went back to my room to sleep. As a result, this part-time job experience led to my employment, where I met Liam. And my parents were oddly happy about my marriage to Liam.
They are good parents.
I gave a wry smile to Liam, who implied a comparison with his own parents. No, they found out. They investigated you, knowing you're the nephew of the real estate group's chairman. Liam couldn't believe it for a while. But when my parents showed up for the birth of our son, Matthew, and our daughter, Jessica, Liam too realized they weren't so different from his own parents. After all, my parents said this:
Now that you have 2 children, you'll be secure for the future.
Yes, our lives will be easier too.
Liam's smile twisted slightly at that moment. Both Liam and I were sensitive to the words uttered by parents. Especially Liam, who knew about my struggles during my student days. Whether they had let their guard down a bit or simply took it for granted, their words clearly indicated they were looking forward to leeching office and our children in the future. After that, Liam also became wary of them. Distant in-laws and parents who tried too hard to get in touch. While being cautious of both, I went on raising our children. As Liam's current position and salary allowed, we could afford to hire a housekeeper or a sitter. While we didn't have trustworthy relatives, we managed to get by on our own. However, last year, the situation changed. The chairman fell ill. The chairman, still in his 60s and usually in good health, exercising regularly, was someone you'd say was unlikely to get sick. He was fit, and his blood pressure and other health indicators were fine. But an impact to the head he had received when he was young had now formed a blood clot that pressed on his brain. Emergency surgery saved his life, and the prognosis was good with no lasting effects expected. However, the group was shaken by the realization that a successor had not been appointed. The chairman himself must have thought he was still capable of letting, which is why he hadn't decided on a successor. But illness comes unexpectedly. Once that became clear, there was a need to think about a successor. The issue then was who that successor would be. The chairman and his wife had no children. At that point, they had neither biological nor adopted children. During his convalescence, the chairman nominated Liam. Within the group company, the proposal seems to have been accepted as reasonable. The most senior employees within the group were aware of Liam's training and executive education. But there were some who couldn't accept it. That is my in-laws.
Wait a minute, brother. He's still too young, isn't he? Shouldn't I be the closest one to you?
Yay. Why would you bypass this man for Liam?
They apparently confronted the resting chairman. The chairman rebuked them, saying,
If I left it to you, you would ruin a group.
And he clearly explained his reasons for choosing Liam. But then, the pressure turned towards Liam. Resign, say you're too young and want your parents to take over instead. It was clearly a threat. What started as please turned into do something or else. with the tone becoming increasingly aggressive.
This is getting serious.
What do you mean?
If I leave them be, they might harm me, you, or even our kids.
Really? At first, I wondered if they would go that far.
They'll do anything.
Liam spat out.
I've never thought of them as my parents, and they probably don't think of us siblings as their children. No, that's not right. To them, children are just tools to generate benefits for the parents.
It's the same with my parents.
No, your parents are better than mine.
Liam shook his head.
Their level of scumminess is worse. While Emma's parents are just clinging to potential profits, those people try to take the profit itself.
What should we do then? I flinched at the word take. A family filled with love and trust that I had finally gained. I didn't want anyone to get hurt.
I have an idea. First, we'll make sure the apartment's security is tight against any intruders. So, Emma, please protect the kids when you go outside.
Can I handle it alone?
I'll ask my uncle to hire a security firm. They'll discreetly guard you when you're out.
I nodded in agreement. From then on, I chose places crowded with people whenever I took the kids out. I also actively participated in gatherings with other moms, which I usually hesitated to do. Being in a group, I figured, would make it harder for anyone to try anything. But even then, there was an attempt to kidnap my kids. It happened while we were all playing in the park. I was supposed to be watching the kids with some mom friends. A plump middle-aged woman, seemingly out for a walk, suddenly picked up my daughter and ran. The security guard, who had been guarding us from a distance, quickly intervened. However, the woman who tried to take my daughter ran off with surprising agility. We never found out who she was or why she did it. It's a scary world out there. Everyone, please be careful, was all that was said. We agreed that we needed to be vigilant against both money-motivated crimes and pranks. But I had overlooked one thing.
Hello.
I ran into my parents in the apartment parking lot. It was right after shopping with my kids, as we were about to exit the car. I hurried back into the car and locked it in a panic. Thump, thump, my parents knocked on the car window forcefully.
Mom, why are Grandma and Grandpa doing this? I'm scared, Mom.
I cracked the window just enough to speak with my parents, though I really didn't want to open it at all. Without that, however, communication was impossible. What do you want?
Hi, you finally opened up. Well, Emma, could you talk to Liam for us?
What are you talking about?
You know, it just seems a bit off for young Liam to become the next chairman. Isn't that out of order?
A chill ran down my spine. Could it be that these people were... Did someone ask you for a favor, Dad?
What?
My dad played dumb. And then my mom said,
You're always so stubborn. Just be quiet and convince Liam to step down. He should say, it's better if my father takes over as the chairman, and I will resign, or else.
In my mom's hand was something like a crowbar. And just as she swung it back, crash, the window shattered with a loud noise. The kids started screaming. Then, my mom reached her hand through the broken window. Get down, you two! I yelled to the kids and started honking the horn repeatedly, signaling for the security guard who must have been somewhere around. Sure enough, I heard the sound of several men running towards us,
Damn it.
With a click of their tongues, my mom and dad immediately left the scene, jumping into a nearby car and speeding away. "Are you all okay?" the security guards asked us. "I'm fine, but my kids."
We're okay, Mom.
My son responded loudly. Still, it was certain that shards of glass had rained down on them. "We'll head back to our apartment right away. Could you please accompany us to the entrance?" The guards agreed and escorted us. The building manager was shocked by our situation and promised to ensure strict vigilance against external intruders. And when Liam came back home that night, I told him about the incident. Of all people, my parents.
Yay, my parents must have been roped in with promises of good positions if they could make my dad chairman or something.
It's possible. It's a very possible deal. Why do our parents have to be such people?
This is seriously bad. I'll go to my uncle's place and ask if he can hide you guys for a while.
To your uncle?
But we have to be discreet about it. Also, I'll contact Karen. I want her to stay with you guys for a bit.
But it won't that be a bother to Karen?
Given who we're dealing with, they might think something could happen to Karen too, since she's of the same bloodline. We're better off presenting a united front.
Liam immediately got in touch with Karen.
Unbelievable, those people. All right, brother, I'll join you. What about my husband?
James is busy with work, isn't he?
Yeah, well, but it's okay. I'll discuss it with him.
Thank you.
At times like this, I think it's good to have siblings. And Karen came to our house the very next day.
After I explained the situation to James, he said there's something he wants to look into and will join us later.
Is that so?
James is really reliable.
Well, he's the man I chose.
We felt a momentary relief and laughed together. But then, the next day, we received that phone call from the police.
Liam Wilson's car was found at the bottom of a cliff.
I couldn't immediately comprehend what that meant. Excuse me, what does that mean and how?
I'm sorry. He was just brought into the hospital.
I couldn't fully grasp the rest of their words. I could hear someone speaking from the other side, but I couldn't react right away. Karen, taken aback by my reaction, took over the conversation for me. After that, it felt like I was merely being led around by Karen, from one place to the next. We went to the police station, confirmed the details, and were handed an envelope that was found in the dashboard. A suicide note. When we opened it, there was a printed letter inside. The content was about not being able to bear the heavy responsibility of being nominated by the chairman, apologizing for it.
So, the police have concluded that my brother took his own life.
No, they still the autopsy and other investigations to be done. We've only shown you this because it was found, nothing more.
It's impossible that he did this himself. I raised my voice right there and then. The person who told me to be so careful. I was at a loss for words. The police said they would contact us when it was time to return Liam's body and sent us on our way. I don't remember much of what happened after that. The local news on TV mentioned that it was still unclear whether it was an accident or not, but the discovery of the suicide note was leaning towards the latter. I was so angry I turned off the TV, only to see my kids looking at me anxiously.
Mom, when is Daddy coming home?
My son was 8, and my daughter only 5. My kids had taken a break from school and kindergarten for a while. I was truly grateful that Karen was there for us during this time. My mind felt like it was covered in a thin film, detached from reality. However, a week after the car was found, an envelope arrived by courier with a specified delivery date.
Emma, this is for you.
Karen, noticing my dazed state, handed it to me. I glanced at the sender's section and widened my eyes. It's from Liam. In a panic, I took the envelope and opened it with trembling hands. There was a letter in it, and a key.
Read this without our parents finding out.
Of course, I knew that. But he still felt the need to write it.
This was written in advance in case something happened. If I'm still there when you receive this, just laugh and give it back to me. But if I'm not, please, Emma, take what's stored in this locker and immediately flee to my uncle's.
Karen and I looked at each other as we read. Then, in a rush, taking only the bare minimum, we took the kids and all got into Karen's car. My car had been under repair since that incident. I wasn't confident driving a replacement car to my uncle's in the next state. So, we relied on Karen.
Leave it to me, but wear a hat and a mask.
Karen said with a smile. And then, we drove nonstop. We were on edge until we reached the main house in the next state. We thought security might be nearby. Still, with everything that happened to Liam, we were worried something might happen to the car too. Having informed Liam's uncle that we were on our way, we parked the car on the property and ran towards the main building. The chairman and his wife were already waiting for us, likely having been informed.
You had a long trip, Emma and Karen. Liam had told us to put guards on you and eventually send you here. But to think it would come to this.
Thank you, but I'm sorry. We had nowhere else to turn. My head was deeply down. My kids were looking around the grand entrance in amazement.
It's fine. I never imagined it would come to this. My foresight was lacking. I never thought they would actually target Liam himself. Those bastards.
The chairman clenched his fist in frustration. We were then led to a spacious living room. It was a room with a calm and warm atmosphere. His wife instructed the housekeeper to guide the children to a corner of the room and bring them some snacks. Thank you so much.
It's all right. You'll want to keep your kids within your sight right now, won't you?
Yes. I didn't want to take my eyes off them for a moment. But the discussion we were about to have was not something I wanted the children to hear directly.
That guy's has always been rotten to the core, but it was hard to exclude them from the group without a decisive reason. Letting them swim around led to this mess.
It's not your fault, Uncle Richard. My parents were involved in this situation too. Liam and I both had terrible parents.
If this had happened, we should have adopted Liam much earlier.
His wife, Carol, muttered. The chairman suddenly looked up.
That's it. Call the lawyer right now.
What, Uncle Richard?
I don't want those children to end up like Liam.
The chairman made me a proposal. After the autopsy, Liam's body was brought to the chairman's house. It was for a private funeral and a memorial service within the group company. I attended the memorial service for Liam with the children, acting as the chief mourner. My parents were there too, shamelessly sitting in the row reserved for family and in-laws. His bosses and colleagues, all bewildered and saddened by Liam's sudden loss, were in attendance.
He was truly a good employee. We had looked forward to his future within the group.
Thank you. Liam would have been honored to hear that. I repeated these words mechanically. His friends and colleagues cried over the unexpected loss. Liam had been surrounded by genuinely good people. Yet, when it came to his parents, after the memorial service, the chairman gathered the family, in-laws, and executives at his house. The spacious gardens and halls were crowded with many people. Among them, a man rushed in.
There you are.
It must have been just after he arrived. Karen's husband, James, clutching a bag tightly, ran towards us.
Sorry I'm late, Karen, Emma. I get held up with some things. But having the memorial service and general meeting on the same day helped. I managed to make it work.
James grinned.
I'm returning these to you.
He took out a set of documents and a USB drive from his bag. Is everything all right now? These were from the locker indicated by the key we had received earlier. As we dashed away in Karen's car, we had asked James, who joined us along the way, to make copies of the documents and the memory stick and send them to us.
The copies were given to your lawyer, right?
Yes.
That's good. We absolutely needed the originals here.
I nodded emphatically. At the general meeting that began shortly after, the chairman spoke in front of everyone about the incident and expressed his regret over losing Liam, who was the designated successor. When he finished his story, the chairman introduced a new point.
It's truly tragic, and I believe I made a mistake in one aspect.
He called for me and my 2 children to his side. My children looked scared, surrounded by a sea of adults, almost on the verge of tears. I reassured them from behind, whispering it was going to be okay.
Therefore, I've decided to appoint my new children, Matthew and Jessica, as the next successors. They are Liam's children, but I have adopted them both.
The crowd murmured in surprise.
Many of you might be shocked. However, I believe that the tragedy occurred because Liam remained merely an FU. Right.
At his words, everyone's gaze shifted towards my in-laws.
What are you saying, Richard?
Can I say that here?
Yes, it is. He took his own life, didn't he? A suicide note was found. Probably couldn't handle the pressure given to him.
Oh, seems like you still have more to say.
Yes. So, these kids are your adopted children now, and you're putting them under unnecessary pressure again.
Who knows, since they're your grandchildren, maybe they won't feel such pressure.
My Phil grimaced at this.
Actually, Liam didn't take his own life.
The chairman declared firmly. The attendees buzz at the words.
What are you saying? A suicide note was found in the dashboard.
No such thing has been announced anywhere, has it?
At this point, James spoke up, asking for permission to speak from the chairman.
Please, go ahead.
Meanwhile, my Phil kept making futile attempts to argue.
But if it was found in the car, it must be true, right?
That's where you're wrong. We, the police, haven't leaked anything like that to the media. Or maybe, David, you really had no interest in me.
James said, revealing his police badge from his suit's inner pocket. Yes, he was a detective in the police department of the prefecture where we lived.
Oh my God.
My Phil was speechless. I couldn't believe he hadn't noticed. I remember Karen saying they hadn't been in contact since she started her job. And even their marriage was only reported briefly. but one would think parents at least will be interested in his son-in-law's profession.
That's just the kind of person he is.
Karen muttered.
I could only provide evidence for the investigation as a police officer.
James explained it. The police had been closely investigating the car pulled from the cliff from the beginning. They noticed early on that the brakes had been tampered with. This tampering occurred on the day Liam sent the letter by courier.
On that day, Liam first went to place something in a locker at the station, then went to a convenience store inside the station to send a letter to Emma. That's when he took a little time.
It was then that the brake system was tampered with. However, the situation didn't become critical immediately.
On his way to this house, Liam encountered a road with several winding paths. Do you know it?
A small voice starts to rise from around the place. Murmurs of agreement rose from the crowd.
An intentionally reckless driver came along. And as you know, this road isn't always wide.
Indeed, in rural areas, it's not uncommon for frequently used roads to be unexpectedly narrow.
Caught in a situation where he had to use the brakes subtly because of the reckless driving, Liam likely realized too late that the brakes were failing.
So, that's what happened.
Though he spoke vaguely, his implication was clear to all.
Yes. And the police have identified the driver from Liam's dashcam footage and have already detained them.
James said, smiling warmly at my in-laws.
But how are we related to that?
It turns out the aggressive driver was just a hired hand, and the investigation into the direct employer is ongoing. However, David, you are going to be charged with a different case.
A different case?
Yes. The case of embezzlement you've been involved in for years. Liam had been quietly investigating that matter. And this is the evidence.
At that moment, multiple projectors, seemingly operated from elsewhere, lit up every wall in the room with various documents.
For now, you'll be arrested for this embezzlement case.
Then, the door at the back opened, and police officers entered the room.
And then,
James glanced briefly at me, then turned his gaze in another direction.
Over there, you two.
What was?
My parents started to rise from their seats.
There's a warrant out for your arrest for vandalizing Emma's car.
What? But that's just a family matter.
My mom exclaimed. I confronted her sharply. A parent who smashes a car window with something like a crowbar, indifferent even if glass shards fall on their grandchild's head? I glared at my parents as hard as I could and said with all my strength, "You're not my parents." My parents slumped back down. Well, then what happened? My in-laws, arrested for embezzlement, confessed during their interrogation to plotting against Liam, adding to their charges. My parents, too, were charged with property damage and for aiding and abetting my in-laws' scheme. The local media were the first to leak the story, with regional newspapers and local news broadcasting it. Of course, that wasn't the end of it. Given the sensational nature of the crime and the fact that it involved actual parents conspiring together, it became fodder for national news and talk shows. In today's era, that's not all. They were marked with a permanent digital footprint. Even if they were released, what could they possibly do? Well, that's none of my concern. Since then, we've been living in Uncle Richard's house, given a room of our own. Richard's wife, Carol, adores the two new children, perhaps spoiling them a bit too much. Since she wanted children but didn't get them, she takes good care of them. But for now, I think it's okay. My 2 children, who had just lost their father, had to transfer their elementary school and kindergarten. I regret having to drag my kids into adult disputes. However, considering their safety, this seems to be the best solution. As for the chairman, he insists on staying fit until the 2 come of age, dedicating himself to physical fitness every single day. Everyone, tea is ready. I spend my days in this house, taking care of my kids and keeping the 2 company. I'm not sure how much I can be of help to them, but for the sake of the children, I plan to live as fully as I can.
Absolutely, do not let my son find this. The letter from my mill began with such an opening. It arrived a week after she had passed away. Throughout my marriage, she had constantly tormented me. I despised her. What could she possibly want with me now? But as I read on, I discovered her unexpected true feelings. And opening the safe at the location marked with the enclosed key, I was utterly astonished. My name is Julie Smith. I'm 35 and work as an office employee. As years passed, my friends and colleagues married one after another. Feeling left behind, I met David through a friend's introduction. As we were the same age, we hit it off over shared hobbies. David's relentless pursuit led to our swift engagement. David had lived at his parents' home, but he moved into my apartment and our married life began. We both worked, shared household chores, and split the living expenses. Despite our busy schedules, the time we spent together at dinner every evening was my solace.
By the way, are you free this Saturday?
Oh, you mean Mary's thing? The moment the topic came up, it felt as if our warm meal had suddenly gone cold. David, noticing my demeanor, furrowed his brow.
Sorry, I know my mom's been causing you a lot of stress.
No, it's fine, David. While maintaining a calm facade, I sighed deeply in my heart. His family home is nearby, and his father passed away before our marriage, leaving his mother living alone. However, the relationship between her and me could never be described as good.
At 35, you lack manners. What kind of upbringing did you have? My dog John is much better behaved.
She mocked me with a laugh, petting her dog's head as I spilled tea from nervousness during our first meeting.
You're not suitable for my son. I oppose this marriage.
She declared in such a manner, leaving me feeling utterly despondent. Yet, David stood by me.
No matter what you say, I will marry Julie. I love her.
He declared firmly in front of his mother, and I was moved by David's words. Despite Mary's opposition, we got married. However, her presence began to cast a shadow over our newlywed life.
Poor David, having a wife like Julie. I'll properly educate her, so come to our house on your days off.
Saying such things, Mary began summoning me to her home almost every week. David came with me, but would often retreat to another room under the guise of sorting his father's belongings, leaving me alone with her. She made me do household chores, criticizing everything I did.
Look, Julie, the kitchen is a mess.
Oh, I was just about to clean it.
The seasoning in the stew you made is too strong, not tasty at all. How many times do I have to teach you? Training John was far easier.
I'm sorry.
Really, you're a lost cause no matter what task you're given. Plus, you're neither young nor beautiful. I wonder what David saw in you to marry you.
Her unkind words kept coming, and I grew increasingly exhausted.
It's okay, Mom just hasn't seen your good side yet. I'm here to protect you, so don't worry.
On the way back from his family home, I was always saved by my husband, who would say just that. That's why I tried to mend things with her, visiting her alone on weekends. But no matter what, her attitude remained stubborn. I refused to give in and forced a smile. Mary, would you like to live with us? Our apartment allows pets.
Live together? No thanks. I'd rather live alone with this dog than with you.
Saying that, as she petted the head of her golden retriever, all I could do was bite my lip. I had suggested living together several times, but she always refused, blaming me. To outsiders, we must have looked like the worst mill and daughter-in-law pair. Initially, I wanted to make an effort. However, no matter how much I tried to bridge the gap, her cold attitude only escalated. Despite my efforts to improve myself, I realized I was simply being bullied as a daughter-in-law.
You are a disgrace to our family. Please divorce him.
Finally, being told even that, I reached the limits of my patience. I came to hate her, and from then on, I reduced my visits to her house and kept our interactions minimal. Just when I thought I had managed to find a balance with her, 3 months into our marriage, David's behavior changed.
Damn it. Why is it always me?
It seemed his work wasn't going well. Whether it was out of frustration or something else, he began lashing out at me and objects around him. One day, after a call with his boss, he suddenly smashed a matching mug we bought while dating. Picking up the shattered pieces, I sighed deeply. Well, how did it come to this? Where did the kind David go? His rages had become a daily occurrence. The first time I saw him like this, I was paralyzed with fear and couldn't move. He broke a cherished music box from our dates and even a Baccarat glass worth hundreds of dollars. But I couldn't respond. When I did confront him, he kicked me out of the house. I had no choice but to wait outside the locked door, hoping David would let me back in. The fear from that moment lingered, and I silently endured until his storm passed.
Well, not amusing. I'm going out to shop for a distraction.
Again, you went yesterday and the day before, didn't you?
Shut up. Don't order me around.
But you haven't given me this month's share for the living expenses.
I've already spent that.
Initially, he would give me a portion of his salary, but soon all his money went to collecting luxury brands, straining our finances. As David had been spoiled by his parents, he lacked financial sense. After marrying, I explained the cost of living, but it didn't seem to resonate with him.
If you're depending on me for living expenses, then earn more yourself. Useless.
He cursed at me and left the messy living room, not returning that day. Left alone, I cleaned up the room, eventually crying. I didn't know he was this kind of person. I regretted my poor judgment in men, but it was too late for regrets. I wished to talk and improve things, but that seemed impossible. Even if I wanted to talk to someone, Mary, the closest person, wouldn't listen. Feeling lost, I began to contemplate divorce, even though our marriage was still new. But just as I started to think about it, something happened. What? Mary has Upon receiving a message from David during work, I immediately left early. The reason was that Mary suddenly passed away, although she had been energetically walking John just a few days before. I never got to be close with Mary in the end. Despite hating her, the thought of her being gone filled me with sadness and regret. Arriving at the hospital, I found David trembling beside his mother's lifeless body. She had missed a step on the stairs and hit her head fatally. I took it upon myself to arrange the funeral in David's stead as he was in shock and unable to act. For the sake of David, sunk in grief, and as atonement to his mother, I busied myself throughout the wake and the funeral day. David only managed to give the mourner's speech. During the funeral ceremony, he even seemed to nod off. Yet, he carelessly spoke to Mary's relatives about the poor relationship between Mary and me. Because of this, I was met with cold stares, making the time feel like sitting on pins and needles, and I couldn't properly say goodbye to Mary. The day after the funeral,
I want a divorce.
What? Before I could accept Mary's death, he suddenly presented me with divorce papers.
I married you for your money from the start, but now that I'm getting my mom's inheritance, I don't need you anymore.
Told in such a matter-of-fact manner, I couldn't hide my shock and surprise at this revelation I had not known. Didn't you care about me at all? You said you loved me, didn't you?
What? That was obviously a lie. Who would willingly marry someone ugly like you?
That's cruel.
Well, what's really cruel is how deceived I was by you. Thought you had money because you're older, but you're just stingy.
He looked at me as if I were something repulsive. Shocked by his harsh words, I was too hurt to do anything but stand there.
So, sign this and mail it to my parents' house. I'm leaving.
After thrusting the divorce papers at me, David left the apartment and never returned. Left suddenly alone, I couldn't organize my feelings, and tears flowed uncontrollably. A few days later, a week had passed since Mary's funeral. With my husband gone, life returned to its usual routine, and I went back to work, resuming my job. Being busy helped me forget the unpleasantness. During those busy days, I started to think positively about the divorce. It felt like it was all tough, but I'll forget it all and start over. But right after I resolved to move on, I found an envelope in the mailbox when I got home from work one day. Seeing it was from Mary, I gasped. A letter from Mary, for me? Surprised that she sent it to me instead of her only son, David, I opened the envelope with trepidation. Can't be true. Could such a thing really happen? Shaking with fear, I read the letter.
Please do not let my son find this.
It described unspeakable things and included a key to a specific location. The letter contained an address, and I immediately left the house to head to the specified location. It was a safety deposit box at a bank. Using the password and key from the letter, I opened the box to find a shocking truth waiting for me. It seems the contents of the letter were true. Now, I need to gather evidence. To acquire what Mary had left, I visited David's family home.
What? You brought the divorce papers?
I'll send those later. I came because I was worried about John. The dog, having lost his owner, was cowering in Mary's room but ran over wagging his tail when he saw me. He is looking poorly cared for and with dull fur. Can I take him home with me? The letter from Mary stated,
Please take care of John.
So I asked David.
That's perfect. I was thinking of dumping him in the mountains later.
Then, can I also take John's toilet and toys? As I said this, holding back my rising anger, David was overjoyed.
Yeah, take it all as a separation gift. Take everything.
While pretending to gather John's belongings, I seized the opportunity to retrieve the evidence Mary had hidden and left his family home. Back at my place, examining what she left behind, I came to understand the sudden reason for her demise and was overwhelmed with tears again. Well, Mary, how frustrated you must have been. I will clear your name. Angered, I vowed to exact retribution on the root cause of all this. 2 days later, ready with my plan, I called David to my apartment. Despite the recent funeral, he arrived dressed in flashy brand name clothes and expensive accessories. How did you afford those?
Well, it's from my mom's savings.
His words ignited my fury. You know I fronted the money for your mom's funeral expenses, right?
Of course, the wife should pay that.
With a smug smile, it was clear he had no intention of paying even a single cent. Clenching my fist, I decided to confront him with the truth. I received a letter from Mary. It included a key to a bank safety deposit box. Guess what was inside? His previously brazen attitude vanished, replaced by a strained expression.
No way.
It seems you've realized. There, I took out my smartphone and showed him the photos I had taken of the contents of the safety deposit box.
So it was there all along. I've been looking for it.
The box contained documents related to the family estate, including property deeds and stocks.
Hey, that's mine. Where is it now? Give it back to me.
He advanced towards me aggressively with bloodshot eyes. Unfortunately, I can't do that. Do not give the inheritance to David. That was your mother's will.
What? What are you talking about?
You know exactly why. Saying that, I presented David with a copy of the letter that had arrived from Mary. Your dad died while fishing with you, didn't he? According to the letter, a few days before the accident, David had begged his father for money as he had accumulated debts from living beyond his means, and was consequently disowned. But soon after, his father died under suspicious circumstances, and both Mary and David inherited his estate. Mary always suspected you were after the money and had something to do with your father's death.
That's nonsense. Everything written there is a lie.
After shouting that, my husband tore up the letter into pieces, despite it being just a copy.
First off, there's no way my mom would entrust something so important to you. You were like cats and dogs.
That's not true. Your mother was actually worried about me. Indeed, Mary's coldness was her way of protecting me from David. Knowing her son's true nature, she acted harshly to push me towards divorce, to save me from being exploited by him. Mary's letter contained apologies, gratitude, and her wish for me to find happiness. Your mother was actually a just and kind person, yet you went as far as to harm her for the inheritance. Tears involuntarily spilled from my eyes. But David, looking at me with cold eyes, smirked dismissively.
What? What are you talking about? Keep your fantasies in check.
Unfortunately for you, it's no mistake. The footage from the camera your mother left is right here. I informed him that I had obtained evidence, as mentioned in the letter from his mother. That was also written in the letter from Mary. After squandering his father's inheritance, David began to demand money from his mother. Feeling threatened, she had installed video cameras throughout the house. I secretly collected these cameras when I went to pick up John. And upon reviewing the footage, I was utterly shocked. The footage revealed a heated argument between them and showed my husband pushing his mother down the stairs. David was seen repeatedly slamming her head against the floor in a distressingly merciless manner. And after seeing her pass away, he was seen smirking. I couldn't forgive what you did, but before going to the police, I wanted to hear it from you. Did you also do something to your father? Once he realized all the evidence was against him, David's true nature was revealed as he glared at me menacingly.
Yeah, I was the one who pushed my dad into the river.
You admit to it all.
Yes, I did both, but I'll be damned if I let the police catch me. Now, hand over the keys to the safe and the video camera.
No way. Mary risked her life to leave this behind. I won't hand it over to someone like you.
Okay, fine by me. Then I'll just silence you and search for it later.
He approached me with a sinister smile. Stop! Don't add more crimes.
Shut up.
In an instant, he grabbed me and put me in a chokehold from behind.
Go to hell, bitch.
But at that moment, a violent impact threw both me and David to the floor. I realized then that John had body slammed him, coming to my rescue. John, thank you. I hugged him as he barked in response. However, David got up, more deranged than ever.
Damn dog, I'll kill you all.
Then he raised a golf club. But then we heard the faint sound of police sirens.
What is it? Police cars?
Everything you just confessed was heard by the police. Saying that, I held my smartphone up in front of David. I had secretly dialed 911 and kept the line open with the police listening in. Then, my husband's earlier bravado was nowhere to be seen. Suddenly, he threw away the golf club and prostrated himself on the spot, his face pale with fear.
Julie, please, tell the police it was a mistake. My life will be over if this continues.
You take the lives of your own parents and now beg for leniency. Also, I secretly installed hidden cameras in this room, too. That will be handed over to the police as evidence.
No, I finally got my hands on the money. I won't get caught.
David broke down in childish sobs, but I had no sympathy for him. I handed over all the evidence and his custody to the arriving police, watching them take him away with John by my side. Afterward, David was convicted for his crimes. He will likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. Our divorce was finalized, and I claimed $30,000 in damages and the funeral expenses I had fronted, received through a lawyer. His mother's estate was left to her relatives as per her will found in the safety deposit box. Surprisingly, she had also left a will instructing that money be given to me and John, and I received a significant sum from her relatives along with their apologies. After everything was settled, I visited the graves of my in-laws to report back, feeling as if Mary in heaven says,
Thank you.
I felt like I heard the word. And I will continue to live harmoniously with my beloved family, along with John.
Mom. After more than half a year, with absolutely no contact, I received a call from my daughter, Ashley. It was already past 8 p.m. Normally, it wouldn't be a big deal, but for Ashley, who has a family of her own, to call at such an hour was extremely rare. I instinctively felt that something serious must have happened. Ashley, what's wrong calling at this hour? What happened? At first, Ashley didn't respond. All I could hear was a whistling sound like air leaking through the phone.
Mom.
In a faint voice, as if squeezing it out, Ashley finally spoke. Ashley, what's wrong? Are you really okay?
Mom, help me.
Sensing something was terribly wrong, I hit the speaker button on the phone. Immediately, my husband, John, rushed over to me, straining to listen. Ashley, hold on. What exactly happened?
It hurts. I haven't eaten anything. I might not make it.
Haven't eaten anything? What do you mean?
I haven't been given anything to eat. By my in-laws. Nothing at all.
I pictured Ashley crawling on the floor, desperately reaching out to me for help.
We have to do something fast, or Ashley's in danger.
John shouted and grabbed the car keys and headed for the front door. I'm coming to get you right now. I yelled into the phone, hurrying after my husband. My name is Susan Smith, 70 years old. Currently, John and I run a fine dining restaurant together. John, having trained in a renowned restaurant when he was younger, is well known for his skill. John and I met through a family introduction, and upon marrying, he opened his own restaurant. John's not just skilled, but he's also got a way with words and a down-to-earth personality that's won him a lot of regulars. I've been helping out at the restaurant for nearly 30 years now, but lately I've started to feel a bit of wear and tear on my body. Maybe it's my age, but just a little bit of movement causes me pain in my back. John, my husband, has suggested hiring some part-time help, but while I appreciate his concern, I worry about the payroll and prefer to keep working as long as I can. Sometimes, John jokingly grumbles, "It would have been nice if she was here to help us out," referring to our daughter, Ashley. Since she's already established her own family, it's not like we can ask her to come back and help at the restaurant now. Ashley is currently living about an hour's drive from our home, in the next town over, with her husband, Mike, and their son, Kevin, as well as Mike's mother, Linda, and recently, Mike's sister, Sarah, has also moved in with them. I don't know the details, but I heard Sarah came back home after getting divorced. I had hoped that Ashley would help out at our restaurant after graduating from college, but she wanted to see more of the world and left home. She ended up getting a job at a major department store, working in the women's clothing section. Fresh out of college, Ashley, with her charm and natural brightness, quickly won over the customers. It was there she met her future husband, Mike. Mike worked in the sales department, focusing on high-end clients, a star in one of the most prestigious parts of the store. When Ashley first introduced Mike to me, I couldn't help but feel a bit of unease. "Are you sure it's okay to marry such a perfect man?" In fact, Mike had a handsome face and a knack for charming conversation that captivated many customers, with some even visiting the store specifically to see him. Yet, Ashley would dismiss my concerns with a carefree smile, saying, It's okay, Mom, don't worry. I trust him. Following that, Ashley married Mike and, taking that as an opportunity, quit her job at the department store to dedicate herself to supporting her husband as a stay-at-home wife. The next year, their son Kevin was born, which brought me the joy of having a grandchild and relieved my worries. Despite everything, it seems like those two are doing just fine, huh? For a while, the Young family of 3 was living in an apartment, but 5 years ago, following the death of Mike's father, they moved to live with Mike's elderly mother, thinking she'd be lonely on her own. Ashley would call home from time to time, but lately, she lamented that Mike was often not around.
Mike stayed out late for work again yesterday and ended up staying at a colleague's apartment. It's been happening a lot recently. Even on weekends, he's away on business.
Still, Ashley laughed it off over the phone, saying, maybe it's just part of being an adult in society. One day, I decided to call Ashley after a long time. Kevin's birthday is coming up, right? Do you have any plans on the day?
We don't have anything particular planned for the day. Why?
Perfect. Our restaurant is closed that day. So how about you, me, and Kevin go out somewhere? To an amusement park or an aquarium, anywhere that would make him happy.
That might be nice. Mike has been really busy with work lately and hardly ever comes home. So Kevin hasn't been able to go out much and is bored.
Ashley sounded excited over the phone, but as Kevin's birthday approached, Ashley called me to apologize.
I'm sorry, Mom. I hate to say this, but something came up after we spoke. I can't go out with you and Kevin after all. I'm really sorry.
Something came up. What happened?
A birthday party organized by the kids' club was scheduled, so we can't make it that day.
A kids' club? Huh. I guess you can't just cancel on them. I was a bit disappointed, but quickly shifted gears. Well, it doesn't have to be on Kevin's birthday. Just let me know whenever you're free.
I'm sorry, Mom. It doesn't look like we'll be able to go anywhere for a while. Next week, there's a nature class with the kids' club. And the week after that, swimming lessons start. It's all pretty packed.
Kids these days sure are busy. It's a shame, but it looks like we'll just have to give up. I had been looking forward to seeing my grandson, so my disappointment was significant. I asked some regular customers who are currently raising children about the latest game consoles that kids enjoy, and I sent one to Kevin.
Mom, the present arrived. Thank you.
I received a thank you call from Ashley. However, I felt a bit of discomfort in the voice of my daughter, which I should be familiar with. Perhaps it's a mother's intuition, but Ashley, who is usually cheerful and energetic, seemed somewhat gloomy and subdued that day. What's wrong? You seem a bit tired today, huh?
No, not at all. I'm as energetic as ever.
Is that so? Well, if you say so.
Anyway, thanks for the gaming console.
About that, I'm not really up to date with what elementary school kids are into these days, so I just went with something someone recommended. I wonder if Kevin was pleased with it.
Well, of course. He was really happy with it, saying Grandma really knows my stuff.
For some reason, Ashley seemed to be in a hurry to end a call, as if she wanted to avoid dragging out the conversation with me. Are you guys doing all right?
What's with that all of a sudden? We're managing just fine, so don't worry about us, Mom.
You mentioned once that Mike's been coming home late recently. Has anything changed since then?
You worry too much. I told you not to bother about it. I've already forgotten about that. And you know, phone calls aren't free, so I'm going to hang up now. You must be busy with the restaurant, right?
Just wait a minute. Right now, it's not about me, it's about you. I started to say, but Ashley hung up on me before I could finish. I only asked about her recent situation, yet why does Ashley try so hard to push me away? It's as if she doesn't want me to probe into her family's affairs, evasively dodging my questions and cutting off the conversation unilaterally. I can't shake the feeling that something's not right. I felt a sense of foreboding. After the restaurant closes, it has become a routine for me and John to have a quiet drink in the living room. That night, as usual, we were relaxing and sharing the weariness of the day. It's about Ashley. Something seems off with her. She seems tired, or maybe not her usual self. I can't quite put my finger on it.
You call her from time to time, don't you?
I just called her this afternoon, but she cut me off one-sidedly.
Is she pushing you away?
More than pushing away, I think she doesn't want to worry me. This might just be a mother's intuition, and it might not be reliable, but I feel like Ashley is hiding something from me. John crossed his arms and fell silent for a while before murmuring, "Could it possibly be related to that thing?" That thing? What are you talking about? After some hesitation, John decided to speak up.
I heard something concerning from one of our regulars about Mike.
What's wrong with Mike?
This regular mentioned that while they were out in the city, they saw Mike leaving a bar with a woman who wasn't Ashley.
You don't think Mike would do something like that, do you?
The woman was not young, but apparently quite attractive, and she was dressed in flashy, expensive-looking designer clothes.
It must be a case of mistaken identity. I said something in defense of Mike. No, it's more accurate to say I didn't want to stir trouble between Mike and Ashley out of parental concern, rather than defending Mike per se.
Of course, the regular wasn't sure it was Mike, just someone who looked somewhat like him.
I didn't want to take that regular's eyewitness account at face value. Yet, I've heard that Mike has been coming home late recently and going out more on weekends. Maybe, unbeknownst to us, Mike is seeing another woman apart from Ashley. With no concrete information, my mind can't help but wander to the worst possible scenarios. I'm worried about Ashley. She never complains or shows weakness. If she knows about this and is struggling.
Don't think too negatively. I'll see what I can do. For starters, one of our regulars is a lawyer. I'm thinking of consulting him.
Since then, I've been so worried about Ashley every day that I even ended up breaking dishes I was washing.
What's wrong? You seem tired yourself, don't you?
I stopped working and tried calling Ashley numerous times, but she hardly ever responded. Occasionally, she'd remember to tell me I'm doing fine, with a brief update, but it was surprisingly nonchalant. Whenever I'd tried to delve deeper into family matters, she'd laugh it off and hang up quickly. Each time I heard Ashley's voice over the phone, it sounded more and more lifeless, as if it could disappear at any moment. I remembered Ashley's charming smile that everyone loved before she was married, and as my anxiety grew day by day, I found myself in tears. Then, about half a year later, I suddenly received a call from Ashley, with whom I had lost all contact. It was after 8 p.m. Normally, it wouldn't be a big deal, but for Ashley, who has a family of her own, to call at such an hour was extremely rare. I instinctively felt that something serious must have happened. "Ashley, what's wrong calling at this hour? What happened?" She didn't respond. All I could hear was a whistling sound like air leaking through the phone. Still, I was certain it was Ashley holding the phone. "Is there nobody around you? Are you alone there?" Since I couldn't hear any background chatter, that's what I thought.
"Mom."
In a faint voice, as if squeezing it out, Ashley finally spoke. "Ashley, what's wrong? Are you really okay?" "Mom, help me." Sensing something was terribly wrong, I hit the speaker button on the phone. Immediately, John rushed over to me, straining to listen. "Ashley, hold on. What exactly happened?"
"It hurts. I haven't eaten anything. I might not make it."
"Haven't eaten anything? What do you mean?"
"I haven't been allowed to eat by my in-laws. Nothing at all."
I pictured Ashley crawling on the floor, desperately reaching out to me for help.
We have to do something fast, or Ashley's in danger.
John shouted and grabbed the car keys and headed for the front door. "I'm coming to get you right now." I yelled into the phone, hurrying after my husband. Throughout the drive, we were both silent. John kept his grip on the steering wheel, his brows furrowed and veins standing out on his forehead. It was probably a mix of inexplicable anxiety and anger at the thought that our precious daughter might be undergoing some unjust treatment. Looking in the mirror, I was sure my expression mirrored John's. Fighting the urge to cry, I closed my eyes, and images of Ashley's youthful, innocent smile floated before me. An innocent girl, unaware of the world's evils, reaching out to us with her tiny hands, trying to share her happiness, filled me with frustration. Ashley was asking for help. Thinking this made me feel all the more pathetic for not having noticed her suffering sooner. From the sound of her voice on the phone, it was clear Ashley was very weak, even without seeing her with my own eyes. I couldn't believe that Ashley, who used to radiate vitality, with a smile as bright as a picture of health, was now pleading for help in such a voice. Looking out the passenger window at the dark streetscape, I murmured, "This must be a dream. I must be having a nightmare." As we passed through a quiet residential area, the light leaking from each home seemed to carry the laughter of families, making me feel that this was how it was supposed to be for Ashley and us, and sadness washed over me again. Even though it was a distance that would take an hour during the day, since the rush hour was over, the roads were relatively clear, and we arrived at the Thompsons, where Ashley lived with Mike and her in-laws, in no time.
Are you okay? I can go in alone if you want.
John offered his kind words, concerned for me, but this was a matter for our family. No matter what reality awaited us, I was determined we will definitely save Ashley with our own hands. When we rang the doorbell, after a moment, a carefree voice could be heard from inside.
"Hello? Who is it at this hour?"
Contrastingly peaceful and laid back to the urgent call made by Ashley, Mike's voice left us puzzled. It's Susan, Ashley's mother. After I introduced myself, Mike went silent, perhaps cautious, then slowly said, Is something wrong?" before cracking the door open to peek out at us standing outside.
Sorry to bother you late at night, Mike. We have urgent matters.
John wedged his foot into the slightly open door and forcefully pushed it open.
Hey, what are you doing, John?
We're coming in.
With a forceful attitude that brooked no argument, we pushed our way into the house. When we stood in front of a narrow room at the end of the hallway with no lights on. "Is Ashley here?" Why we thought Ashley was in this room, I couldn't explain later, but we had no doubt her daughter was here, calling out for our help from this very spot.
It's beyond rude. Even if you are Ashley's parents, I'll call the cops.
Well, that works out. Might as well have a police witness this, huh?
John didn't flinch as he forcefully slid the room's door open. There, Ashley was crouched on the floor, like a worn-out, discarded rag. It took our brains a few seconds to recognize that this was our daughter, so emaciated and changed was her form. "Ashley, oh, what in the world has happened to you?" We let out a voiceless cry as we rushed to Ashley, lifting her weakened body.
"Mom, help me. It hurts. I can't take it anymore."
Barely breathing, Ashley managed to respond. It was immediately clear that Ashley was delirious and suffering from severe dehydration.
What are you people doing here? Get out, right now.
Mike tried to shoo us away as if we were intruders, but his voice lacked any conviction. His gaze wandered as if scared of something, his body trembling uncontrollably. "Mike, just bring some water for now."
But I can't possibly.
"Quit your whining and just bring it." My furious shout pressured Mike into running to the kitchen, and he quickly returned with a bottle of water from the fridge. I snatched it away, opened a cap, and said, "Here you go, Ashley, drink some water." Hearing the commotion, Linda and Sarah also came.
"What's all this ruckus about?"
It's so loud I can't hear the TV.
I think we're the ones who'd like an explanation.
John glared at Mike, demanding answers, and Mike immediately prostrated himself in apology.
I'm so sorry.
And then Mike began to explain how Ashley ended up in this state, a story beyond our wildest imaginations. It seems things were going well initially when Ashley and her husband started living with her mill, Linda. However, at some point, Mike started coming home late, and as if in response, Linda's attitude towards Ashley turned cold suddenly. One day, worried about Mike's late returns, Ashley talked to Linda, who, instead of addressing her concerns, blamed Ashley for Mike's absence. Ashley had no idea why she was being blamed, but Linda told her it was because she couldn't get back to her pre-pregnancy figure after giving birth to Kevin, which was completely unreasonable. From then on, Linda began to dump all the household chores on Ashley every time she refused, and even imposed dietary restrictions on her. Despite this, Ashley tried to stay cheerful and brushed off every unreasonable demand, but it seemed Linda didn't find this amusing. The harassment escalated, and under the pretense of preventing secret snacking, Linda took control of all of Ashley's finances. Sarah, Ashley's sister-in-law, who had returned home after a divorce, joined in because she thought it sounded fun, and Lyndall entrusted Sarah with monitoring Ashley whenever she couldn't. The hardest part for Ashley was not being allowed to care for Kevin with her own hands. There was nothing more painful and sad than not being able to raise her own child, whom she had carried and given birth to, under the same roof. Linda unilaterally forbade Ashley from even seeing Kevin, and if she tried to approach Kevin's room, Sarah, the monitor, would immediately stop her. While Ashley was being forced to clean the bathroom as a punishment, Linda was having a great time with Kevin.
This is all I know.
Mike said, collapsing weakly to his knees.
Don't speak so lightly of our family's shame.
Exactly. I can't believe you'd blab such nonsense to strangers. You have really lost your nerve, bro.
That's not all, is it? There's more you're hiding, right? Mike looked up for a moment with a huh, and his face showed signs of anxiety. Just then, a taxi stopped at the entrance, and the sound of someone getting out could be heard.
Here he came.
The three members of the Thompsons were completely bewildered by the situation. Soon, a tall gentleman in his 50s appeared, and Mike's face turned pale. Looks like you know this man, don't you? Mike gave no answer, but it was clear he understood there was no escaping the situation. Without even looking our way, he just waited for time to pass.
Good evening. My name is Keith Wilson, an actor. Is this my first time meeting a Thompson family in person like this?
He glanced at each member of the Thompson family, confirming their faces one by one. In his younger days, Keith Wilson was a popular actor known to everyone for his roles in movies and TV shows. But as he aged, his popularity waned. Nowadays, he's known more for his past fame than his current work.
Why is Keith Wilson, of all people, here at our house?
Linda, speaking for the Thompson family, asked with a smile that was more of a grimace, her voice pitched high from nervousness. It was clear to anyone that she was deeply unsettled. I invited him here. Before coming, I contacted a lawyer friend of mine and asked Keith to join us.
I wonder what the connection is between Keith Wilson and us.
She tried to play it cool, but I just grinned and said, "You all must have some idea why Keith is here, right?" Soon after, the lawyer arrived, apologizing for his delay with a chuckle.
Sorry I'm late. Got caught up sorting out some documents for another case.
With the lawyer's appearance, the Thompson family fell silent.
Actually, at the request of Susan, I've been investigating Mike here for the past 6 months. We discovered he's been having frequent secret meetings with a certain woman. The woman in question is a wealthy patron at the department store where Mike works. And upon further investigation, we uncovered a shocking fact.
This woman is none other than my wife, Catherine Wilson.
Keith Wilson joined in with a calm explanation.
I was honestly surprised when Catherine brought up divorce, but somewhere in my heart, I thought, I knew it. She had been sneaking out without telling me for a while. After hearing everything from this lawyer, everything clicked. So, we decided to come here today to hear Mike's side of the story directly.
Mike slowly stood up and began to speak in a fragile voice, as if he were a shell without a soul.
As I mentioned earlier, Catherine and I met through our relationship as a major department store client and a salesperson. Over the years of working visits to her home, we found ourselves in such a relationship. At first, I thought it was just a fling, but then we discovered Catherine was pregnant, and we couldn't turn back. So, we both decided to leave our partners and remarry. I'm truly sorry.
Keith was standing tall like a warrior, and Mike clung to his feet and sobbed out an apology.
When I was celebrated as a top actor, Catherine always gave me her brightest smiles. But now, with my work dwindling, and then she met a handsome man like you, I guess she couldn't help herself. She's someone who must have whatever she fancies, you know.
Keith said with a weak laugh. Although Mike wanted a divorce from Ashley, he couldn't easily bring it up because being in an affair himself, he would be the one liable for alimony. So he turned to his mother, Linda, for help. Initially, Linda was against the divorce due to societal appearances, but changed her tune completely when she learned the other woman came from a wealthy family, eagerly offering her support. Thinking if Ashley initiated the divorce, there would be no need to pay alimony, Linda began to harass her at every opportunity, scheming to make Ashley want to leave the house on her own.
I believed in you.
Ashley, though staggering, stood firmly on her two legs, overwhelmed by frustration from being deceived by her in-laws, and burst into loud sobs.
I thought if I lost weight, Mike would surely come back to me. That's why I could endure any unreasonable treatment from Linda or Sarah. To think it was all a plot to drive me out.
It's okay now. You've done nothing wrong. You don't have to try so hard anymore. I hugged my daughter tightly.
It's true I wanted a divorce from Ashley. But never in my wildest dreams did I think Mom and Sarah would go to such extremes. Even I'm appalled.
Hold on a minute. I was only trying to help you out by getting Ashley out of this house. It's your affair that started all this trouble.
Exactly. You've been turning a blind eye to everything we've been doing for her, acting like you had no idea. Don't pretend to be innocent now.
Witnessing three people hurling insults at each other, I was utterly speechless, but next to me, Ashley, trembling, burst out.
Enough is enough. If you so desperately want me gone, I'll leave on my own accord.
Oh, really? Well, that would be helpful.
It's wrong to be pleased, Linda. I will never forgive you. Once we're divorced, expect a hefty alimony claim from me, just so you're prepared.
With that, Ashley's voice filled the house. Kevin, where are you? Come here. We're going to live at your grandparents' house from now on.
Okay, got it.
Kevin cheerfully ran down the stairs from his room and hugged Ashley. Later, Mike was fired from his company for an affair with a client that severely damaged the company's image. Ashley, as she had declared, filed for divorce and demanded a substantial amount of alimony. Having lost his job and now faced with alimony payments, Mike, after a huge fight with Linda and Sarah, was forced to reluctantly sell the house. Ashley's fury did not end there. She also demanded a significant amount of compensation for mental and physical distress from Linda and Sarah. Despite being harassed by Linda and Sarah, Ashley had been diligently documenting the situation in a notebook daily, which proved advantageous in court. Ashley's health and spirit gradually recovered after moving back to our home, and she became her cheerful self again. Despite ongoing issues with the Thompson family, Everything was resolved with the help of a skilled lawyer. Rumor has it that Mike and Catherine had a child. After losing his job and home, Mike, living on Catherine's financial support, lost all will to work and became increasingly unkempt. To make matters worse, elderly Linda and nagging Sarah followed him, which was too much for Catherine, raised in luxury, leading her to leave with their child. After Catherine left, what became of the Thompson family is beyond me and of no interest.
Well then, it's time I got back to work after slacking off too much.
With that resolve, Ashley began helping out at our restaurant due to my back pain. Ashley, who had previously worked in customer service at a major department store, quickly became well regarded locally, turning the restaurant into a bustling place with lines out the door. With a new star at the restaurant, I have no regrets. I stepped back from our business and spent my free time watching over Kevin. Kevin is about to enter middle school and declared at his elementary school graduation that he wants to be a cool chef like his grandpa, making me and John cry. We can't wait to see what the future holds for Kevin.
Emily placed instant noodles in front of me.
There's only enough for the family.
I couldn't understand what Emily was saying.
And then, should we head home?
Ken, with just those words, started towards the entrance. Yes. I stood up from my seat and followed Ken. I'm so sorry for everything that's happened. Like a dam breaking, I told Ken everything up until now. How suddenly Emily's attitude towards me changed. My name is Hannah Yarnold. I'm a 56-year-old homemaker. My husband's name is Ken. Ken and I worked at the same company. It was what you'd call an office romance. I was in accounting, and Ken was in sales, different departments, but Ken often dropped by accounting. Ken would distribute souvenirs from his business trips to those in accounting. Ken was thoughtful and kind. Whenever I went to the sales department to check on receipts, Ken was always the first to help. Even if it wasn't his fault, Ken would always apologize. He was sincere in his dealings, and his smile was kind. I was secretly attracted to him but too embarrassed to say anything, so our relationship as colleagues continued for a while. Then, at one point, it was discovered that one of the employees had been falsifying receipts. Ken cooperated with the accounting department to uncover the truth and resolve the issue. After that, Ken invited me out for a meal under the pretext of a consolation party. I thought it would be a group going out, but it was just only us. I was surprised, but more than that, I was happy. Dinner with Ken was so enjoyable that I lost track of time. Ken and I had similar farts, such as it was fun for us to get the money right when doing bookkeeping. After that, we went out for meals and on dates several times. After about half a year of dating, Ken proposed to me. I pretended to think it over, but I was incredibly happy. I planned to keep him in suspense for about a week, but my happiness won out, and I told him, okay, the next day. Ken has always been very kind from when we first met. and even after we got married. He always thinks of me. He makes sure we have quality time as a couple. I think I'm truly lucky to have married Ken. I continued working after we got married, but I quit my job when I became pregnant with our eldest son, Tyler. Tyler's birth was difficult. He was breech. It could be dangerous for either baby or mom, the doctor told Ken. We doted on Tyler when he was born safe. Tyler was a mischievous child, leaving the house covered in scribbles, and he would take apart his toys almost immediately. Despite this, we never got mad at Tyler, letting him grow up freely and without restraint. Due to risks associated with pregnancy and childbirth, Ken and I had decided to only have Tyler. Tyler was an incredibly precious treasure to us. During his time in kindergarten and early elementary school, he was quite wild, causing quite a bit of trouble for his teachers. We were warned about his behavior numerous times during parent-teacher meeting. However, as he moved into the upper grades of elementary school, he began to show more discretion, and his behavior improved significantly. From then on, Tyler seemed to become quite the model student. He excelled academically, serving as the president of the student council. He was also the captain of his extracurricular club. He never scored below an A on any test. Yet, Tyler hardly seemed to study at home. Even when I peeked into his room, he was usually lounging around reading comics. When I asked, "Are you studying?" he'd simply respond, "Yeah, I am," without looking up from his comics. However, Tyler's grades never slipped. He must have been putting in the effort when I wasn't aware. Tyler chose to attend a local public middle school and high school. Even though his grades could have easily gotten him into a more prestigious private school, he chose the public school closest to our home. Throughout middle school and high school, he consistently ranked at the top of his class and served as student council president. He went on to attend a local public university. In college, he seemed to focus more on volunteering and other activities than on his studies. When it came time for job hunting, Tyler only applied to local companies. Given his academic record, he could have landed a job at a major corporation or even an international firm. I found it curious that he chose smaller, local companies. I asked him why.
I've kind of always wanted to work locally since high school.
It turned out, a high school project on our hometown sparked his interest in staying local. He chose the local university and sought to deepen his understanding of our town through volunteer work. I was genuinely impressed by his thoughtful planning, having had no idea he felt this way. "That's amazing, you've really thought this through." I praised him.
"It's nothing special,"
he said with a bashful smile. Tyler got his wish and secured a job at a local company, graduating from university without issue. I thought he would commute from our house, but he decided to rent an apartment closer to work.
"It's all about the experience,"
he said. He wanted to understand the challenges of managing a household on his own. Our home felt eerily quiet without Tyler around. But then again, it was just like when Ken and I first got married. I decided to enjoy the quiet life with Ken again. Thanks to Tyler attending public schools, we had quite a bit of savings left. Our mortgage was almost paid off, and it looked like we could settle the balance around the time Ken retired. Additionally, my parents own a broad apartment rental business. Eventually, it seems I'll take over the apartment management. We won't have to worry about our retirement. Tyler's apartment was close enough that he could visit us by bike, so we didn't feel so lonely. After a few years of this peaceful life, Tyler mentioned, "I have someone I want you to meet." He was 26 years old at the time. Tyler brought the woman home with him.
Let me introduce you. This is Emily.
Emily works in the accounting department of the same company as Tyler. When Ken and I heard this, we looked at each other and shared a laugh. Tyler and Emily looked at us curiously. While laughing, Ken started to talk about how he and I got to know each other. Listening to our story, Tyler and Emily also exchanged glances and smiled. Emily is petite, and when she laughs, the corners of her eyes droop down, giving her a very cute and kind impression. Emily seemed restless, looking around our house curiously. This behavior, akin to a little bird scanning its surroundings, was charming. Ken and I quickly took a liking to Emily. If we had been harsh in our judgment of her at that moment, the incident that followed might never have occurred. There was a hidden reason behind Emily's surveying of our house. Ken and I failed to notice.
Pleased to meet you.
Even just hearing her voice, I thought Emily was too good for Tyler, as she came across very pleasantly. Emily is a great listener, making even the usually quiet Ken engage in lively conversation with her. The four of us enjoyed a delightful dinner together. After Tyler and Emily left, Ken and I were relieved and happy that Tyler had chosen such a great partner. Somehow, I felt as though a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Tyler and Emily's relationship progressed smoothly, and they decided to get married. They held their wedding at a local venue, where they were blessed by everyone. For Ken and me, it was one of the most memorable days of our lives. However, we could never have imagined that from this point on, our lives would start to spiral into misfortune. At first, we thought it was just a coincidence, or perhaps Emily wasn't feeling well, but it seemed that wasn't the case. Her attitude towards me became increasingly worse day by day. When I tried to discuss what to make for dinner with Emily, she initially pretended not to hear me. Then, her usual response would be something like, "What is it?" as if it was a bother. I was intimidated by Emily's attitude. I was thinking about what to make for dinner. Emily's responses were always cold.
"Oh, whatever is fine. Why don't you decide, Hannah?"
The atmosphere was not at all conducive to discussion. It was clear that Emily's attitude had changed significantly from when we first met. And it was only towards me. More than being angry, I was perplexed. I didn't want to ruin our relationship with Emily, so I ended up being overly accommodating. Well, how about chicken curry for today?
That sounds fine.
Emily would end our conversations with a hint of annoyance. I quickly got started on preparing the curry. Then, without offering to help, Emily would make comments like, "That ingredient, what about the spices?" as if she was picking on everything I did. Ignoring her remarks, I continued to cook the curry in silence. As I cooked, I wondered if I had done something terrible to Emily. But I couldn't think of anything. Had I said something to upset her? Had I done something offensive? I tried desperately to remember, but nothing came to mind. Honestly, I had no clue. Even after that, Emily's attitude didn't change. Every time Emily treated me terribly, I would wonder if I had done something to her. But I couldn't understand why Emily was being so awful towards me. I felt like the reason for Emily's change in attitude wasn't me but something else. This was just a hunch, with no certainty. A year passed, and Emily's attitude towards me remained the same. On the contrary, it had gotten even worse.
Hey, Hannah, this dish looks awful.
Emily began to openly criticize my cooking. She now openly insulted me.
The seasoning looks too strong, and doesn't it look bad?
I couldn't help but talk back. Well, that's how we always cook it here. Emily would snort at my words and mock me.
Oh really? How lame.
I was honestly quite irritated by Emily's attitude. If you're going to complain that much, why don't you try cooking by yourself next time?
Scary, you are so scary.
Emily exaggeratedly acted frightened. Loudly enough for Ken and Tyler in the living room to hear, perhaps intentionally. I was scared of Emily's calculated behavior. Anyway, Emily's attitude was only visible when we were alone. She kept making provoking remarks towards me. I thought about consulting Ken or Tyler many times, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Emily was exceedingly devoted to Ken, and she got along well with Tyler too. So I thought I just had to endure it. I didn't want to ruin the relationship.
Today's dinner is oven-baked rockfish, made by Hannah.
Emily served the dish with an incredible smile. After being bombarded with sarcasm by Emily in the kitchen, I could only force a wry smile.
It looks delicious,
Ken said as he took his seat. Tyler smiled as well.
Hannah can cook delicious meals, and she's great at laundry and cleaning. I really admire her.
Emily turned to me with a smile. Honestly, I felt sick.
Hannah, you're really amazing.
Ken and Tyler, unaware of Emily's hidden face, looked on fondly as she praised me. Thank you. I responded with a forced smile. To an outsider, my expression might have seemed awkward. Seeing Emily's smile, one wouldn't think she treated me terribly. The best I can expect is to be accused of lying. I feared being labeled a liar by Ken and Tyler. I thought if I kept enduring without consulting anyone, Emily's attitude might change. However, Emily's harsh words and attitude towards me never ceased. Emily continued to complain about my cooking being awful. Yet, she did nothing herself. She didn't even clean up after meals. And if there's even the slightest thing wrong, she's quick to complain. One day, Emily threw unbearable words at me.
Hannah, are you sane with that seasoning?
Unable to hold back, I retorted to Emily. Got a problem? Emily, as always, pretended to be shockingly surprised.
Nothing at all. Scary.
What's with that tone? Stop mocking me already. It seemed like my serious gaze made Emily flinch a bit.
I'm not mocking.
Emily muttered, biting her lip and glaring at me. It's always so unpleasant. I continued.
Shut up, a woman like you.
It was as if Emily's facade had slipped. Suddenly, her face twisted into ugliness.
Being treated roughly is just right for you?
Emily continued to hurl insults at me.
Really tacky, not good looking, and a bad personality too. You being a mill is unbelievable.
Emily couldn't stop bad-mouthing me. To mock me to this extent must mean she really dislikes me. But still, I can't understand the nerve to say such terrible things, even to someone you dislike. Then, I think, she should just not come over and keep her distance. I became sad. It's sad to think you felt that way. Emily yelled out, as if she was upset.
Well, really, I've had enough.
Hey, are you okay?
From the living room, Tyler called out. Emily's loud voice had reached the living room.
Heard a loud voice.
As Emily and I were arguing, Tyler came from the living room to the kitchen. Seeing Tyler's face, Emily seemed to regain her composure.
Sorry, there was a cockroach?
I also matched Emily's tone. That's right, sorry for being noisy.
We'll handle the cockroach ourselves. It's fine.
Emily said, pushing Tyler's back towards the living room.
So.
Tyler said, then went back to the living room. Neither Emily nor I had any intention of involving Tyler and Ken. This was a problem between Emily and me. Afterwards, the relationship between me and Emily remained unchanged. An unpleasant mood continued to linger between us. However, about 6 months later, happy news came into Tyler's family. Tyler and Emily were expecting a child. I hoped this would change the relationship with Emily. After getting pregnant, Emily was cautious and drastically reduced her visits to our house. I finally got back to a peaceful daily life for the first time in a while. While Emily was away, I kept thinking about why she had changed her attitude. I couldn't think of anything that might have caused it. There was just one thing that bothered me, but could that really have upset her so much? Shaking my head in disbelief, I went out shopping. When Emily entered her second trimester, she and Tyler came over to our house. I had thought that with a baby on the way, Emily's attitude would have settled down. But I was too optimistic. As soon as she saw me, Emily reverted to her terrible behavior.
You know, unlike you, everything's going smoothly with my pregnancy.
Please rest on the couch because you need to take care of yourself. I told Emily that, but Emily just hurled insults at me.
No way. If I let you cook, who knows what we'd end up eating.
And then, unbelievably, Emily said, I need to keep an eye on things. What does she mean by keep an eye? Did Emily really see me that way?
You can talk back if you want, but I'm fine no matter what you, who could only have one child, say.
Oh, is that so? I replied, trying to keep a calm exterior, but I was not at peace inside. I felt guilty for not being able to give Tyler a sibling. Deep down, I felt sorry for Tyler. I compensated by pouring all my love into him and ensuring we spent a lot of quality time together. Ken and I could live a relaxed life together. I had no regrets about that. As I fell silent, Emily piled on more complaints.
That reaction. Can't even talk back. How lame.
I didn't understand what Emily wanted or why she was doing this. Deciding I couldn't deal with it anymore, I chose to ignore her. Months later, Tyler and Emily had a healthy baby girl. For Ken and me, she was our first grandchild. We were overjoyed. We eagerly awaited the day we could meet our granddaughter. I hoped that having a child would improve my relationship with Emily. With my experience in child rearing, I could teach her a lot. But my hopes were dashed. This became clear during our granddaughter's introduction party. The truth behind Emily's actions was also revealed. A week after Emily and the baby came home from the hospital, Ken and I rushed to Tyler's apartment with gifts for the newborn. We brought loads of presents for our granddaughter, like swaddles, baby carriers, diapers, and formula. Emily looked a bit worn out, but seemed well. I noticed her eyes turn cold when she saw me, but I was too excited to see my granddaughter to care. The baby was sleeping peacefully in her crib. Seeing Tyler as a father was deeply moving. He looked more mature. I laid out the groceries I had bought on the table. Thinking they wouldn't have had time to cook, I brought plenty of ready-to-eat meals for Tyler and Emily. As I started to prepare the meal in the kitchen, Emily strangely insisted.
I'll do it. Please sit down.
You don't have to push yourself, I said, but Emily pushed me down into a chair.
It's okay, really.
Feeling a strange pressure from Emily's behavior, I reluctantly sat down. As Emily served the side dishes on plates in front of Ken and Tyler.
Here you go, please enjoy.
I was thinking my portion would come later, when Emily only placed one plate on the table. But not in front of me, but at her own seat. I had a bad feeling about this, but kept quiet.
Oops, my bad. I forgot your portion.
Ken and Tyler laughed. It seemed like I was the only one with a bad premonition. However, Emily's next action made even Ken and Tyler freeze. She placed instant noodles in front of me.
We only have enough for the family.
I couldn't comprehend what Emily was saying. As I sat frozen, Emily, laughing, added insult to injury.
You're not family. You're a stranger. Isn't that obvious?
I couldn't grasp what Emily meant by not family. It dawned on me that Emily's feelings towards me hadn't changed at all. That's when Ken stood up.
And then, shall we head home?
All Ken said was that, before heading towards the entrance. Yes. I stood up and followed Ken. In the apartment lobby, I apologized to Ken. I'm sorry for what happened. Ken looked at me with a gentle smile.
It's Emily who should be sorry. What happened?
I poured out everything to Ken, like breaking a dam, about how Emily suddenly changed her attitude towards me. And she pretended to be friendly in front of Ken and Tyler. Ken looked into my eyes and nodded slowly. I asked Ken why he believed everything I said.
Well, I never would have thought Emily could do something like that.
I would think the same if I were in Ken's shoes. Emily had been playing her cards well.
You wouldn't lie, especially not to speak ill of someone.
Ken trusted me. That made me incredibly happy. Ken murmured as if to himself.
It would be unthinkable for me, your husband, not to believe you.
Tears started to well up in my eyes. Ken handed me a handkerchief with a laugh.
It's also my fault for not realizing it sooner.
That couldn't be helped. I had kept it a secret, after all.
I'm really sorry.
Ken's words made my tears unstoppable.
Don't worry about it. I'm here for you.
Thank you, I said, my voice choked with tears. How dependable Ken was. I was moved by Ken's kindness. As I was about to leave the apartment building's lobby, my phone rang. Checking the screen, it was from Tyler. Feeling sorry for ruining the celebration of our first grandchild, I answered the call. Tyler's call was to say, I want to talk things over properly, so please come back. He wanted to apologize for Emily's rudeness, and also mentioned that Emily's behavior had been odd. I consulted with Ken, and we decided to return together. Opening the front door, Tyler welcomed us. Instead of the living room, Tyler guided us to the nursery, which was still being set up. There was a study desk and a bed, and I couldn't help but laugh at how eager they seemed.
I'm really sorry about Emily. You guys have been having trouble for a while, haven't you?
It seemed like Tyler had noticed something.
Back when there was yelling in the kitchen, you were having trouble then, too, right?
That's right. I had made up a story about a cockroach to Tyler. Tyler had realized it. After getting married, I explained to Tyler that Emily's attitude had changed quite quickly. Tyler listened silently, but his fists were clenched tightly.
I'm truly sorry.
Tyler believed what I said. I had thought Tyler might defend Emily and call my story a lie. Tears started to well up in my eyes again.
Emily and I have decided to get a divorce.
Ken and I were so surprised that we couldn't find the words to speak. Why? Somehow, I managed to utter just that one word. Ken nodded in agreement.
I'll explain everything now.
Tyler said, then headed out of the room towards the living room. Ken and I followed him. I heard Emily squealing and screaming, "No," from the living room. On the dining table, there was a divorce form. with Tyler's signature on it, which I didn't miss. Seeing my face, Emily threw a magazine and a decorative item she had at hand towards me. One of them nearly hit me. At that moment, Ken shielded me, and a small decorative item hit him in the face. Ken's glasses flew off in a random direction. Maybe Emily hadn't expected it to hit anyone. She stopped moving, and her eyes went wide. Shocked, I looked at Ken's face to see blood streaming down from near his temple. Tyler, with an incredibly stern look, approached Emily and pinned down her hands.
Do you even realize what you've done?
Tyler's voice was louder than I had ever heard it before. Emily collapsed on the spot as if her legs had given out.
I did nothing wrong. It's not my fault. It's her fault.
Emily kept repeating the same words, seemingly in shock. Tyler looked at me with a sad expression.
Right after we got married, Emily went to visit you, remember?
I tried to recall when that was. That moment, I realized what felt off back then. I just realized the discomfort I felt back then. Yes, Emily had visited me alone at that time. At that time, Emily came to me asking for a loan. It was a loan that Tyler didn't know about. So I said, first, you should talk to Tyler about it. At that time, she said, okay, and immediately went back home. Since she never came to me again to discuss it, I thought it was resolved. I kept this to myself, so Ken didn't know. Ken looked at me surprised. I'm sorry for keeping silent. I felt bad for Emily and didn't tell you.
I hate that goody two-shoes attitude of yours.
Suddenly, Emily lashed out at me with harsh words. That was quite a nasty way to speak.
About that loan, Emily had borrowed money from somewhere else and repaid it.
Then Tyler shared with me about Emily's spending habits. Emily has always been extravagant with money. She likes to use expensive ingredients and loves brand name goods. When Tyler met Emily, she already had debts. I talked to Emily, advising her not to take on any more debts. I also told her that if she didn't, I couldn't associate with her, and she agreed.
That time, Emily was apologizing while crying.
Tyler looked down at Emily sadly.
Anyway, I'm definitely not in the wrong. She's the one to blame.
Emily insisted she wasn't at fault, but it was unconvincing. Tyler and Ken looked at Emily with dispassionate eyes.
Cut it out. Enough, enough, enough.
Emily started crying and throwing a tantrum. We couldn't handle her and kept our distance. Just when Emily was about to smash a ceramic ornament on the floor, the baby in the crib started crying. As I rushed to soothe the baby, Emily yelled out,
Shut up. Why is this brat crying?
We were all shocked at Emily's outburst.
Everyone's just getting in my way. Shut up.
The baby, startled by Emily's yelling, cried even harder. I tried to calm the crying baby, but there was no sign of stopping.
Enough with the noise. Make that brat stop crying.
This must be the real Emily, still speaking nastily. Emily's eyes were not sane. She seemed to have lost herself. Thinking of the baby's safety, I decided to take him to the nursery.
Where are you taking her?
Because I don't know what you might do.
Let go of my baby.
Emily was yelling.
Emily, firstly, put down that ornament you're holding.
Emily looked at the ceramic she was holding up.
Is it okay to show your baby this side of you?
Calmed by Ken's rational words, Emily seemed to come back to her senses. Quietly putting down the ornament, she covered her face with both hands. Emily started sobbing loudly. In the end, Ken and I decided to take care of the baby for the day. Let's leave Tyler and Emily to talk it over in their own time. The next day, Tyler came over to our house. His face looked worn, but there was a certain freshness to his expression. In the living room, Ken and I listened to what Tyler had to say. It was horrifying. The conversation from yesterday was about Emily's excessive spending. Even Tyler's attempts at persuasion couldn't curb her spending habits. In fact, Emily's spending had gotten even worse. Having borrowed money from everywhere, Emily had set her sights on our assets. When I heard this, I understood why Emily had looked around our house when she first came. She was checking to see if there was anything of value in the house, or if we were wealthy. She then tried to extract money from me. But after being refused, she seemed to bear a grudge. After that, she started treating me harshly. I was scared and shivered. It wasn't that I was mean and refused to lend her money. I just wanted them to discuss it as a couple first. But Emily took it the wrong way. Tyler's story didn't end there. Since Emily had been acting strange lately, Tyler had hired a private investigator. The investigation revealed Emily's affair. Moreover, she had conspired with her lover to steal Ken's life insurance money. I was shocked. You mean, they planned to make it look like an accident? Tyler nodded silently.
That was her plan.
Tyler continued painfully. Emily had been tormenting me to drive me out of the house. The plan was to get rid of Ken at the time I was kicked out. What a dreadful plan. Emily had concocted such a terrible scheme. I trembled and wrapped my arms around myself. After receiving the report, Tyler had decided on divorce. He was looking for the right moment to talk about it when this incident happened. Tyler said he was going to report this to the police.
We can't just stay silent about this.
Indeed, if we let this slide, Emily might repeat her actions. Thinking she could get away with it would only embolden her. And she might do the same, or even worse, again. Emily needs to be properly judged, Tyler said. Ken agreed. That would be best. I also told Tyler. Tyler reported to the police, and Emily was arrested. Since she was trying to unjustly claim the insurance money, her arrest was inevitable. Emily's diary detailed the plan to get the insurance money. Tyler and Emily's divorce was finalized while Emily was in jail. Emily apparently claimed custody, but of course, custody was granted to Tyler. Even the lawyers seemed dismayed by Emily's claim to custody. If Emily is prosecuted, She and her co-conspirator will likely receive prison sentences. I hope Emily seriously reflects and faces her crimes behind bars. Not only did it ruin Tyler's life, but it also caused a great deal of trouble for the child that was born. The assault on Ken did not become a legal case because Ken didn't file a complaint. It was a kindness unique to Ken. Since Emily left, peace has returned to my heart. I can sleep soundly at night, and I don't get palpitations anymore when I visit Tyler's house. Living with Ken, just the two of us, has been peaceful. The times when Emily was causing turmoil feel like a lie to me now. Tyler and my granddaughter are living together. Fortunately, Ken and I live nearby. We help with anything we can, including daycare drop-offs and pickups and meals. Above all, it's a joy to witness my granddaughter's growth up close. At this rate, Ken and I might be able to see our granddaughter's high school graduation. Because the granddaughter was a baby, she doesn't remember her mother. It might be sad, but it's probably for the best not having such a mother. Besides, it seems Tyler is seeing someone. My granddaughter whispered to me as if it were a secret. I'm looking forward to Tyler saying, "There's a woman I want you to meet."
Mom.
Lucy, unusually hustling, entered the room with a beautifully decorated card in her left hand.
There was an invitation to their wedding in the mailbox.
What?
Ryan quickly checked the card in Lucy's hand, reading it over and over. The normally mild-mannered twins were biting their lips tightly and frowning deeply.
This is just harassment.
My head started to throb, and I ended up snapping coldly, "Just tear it up and throw it away."
Sure, of course.
The moment Ryan was about to tear the card lengthwise, Lucy grabbed his hand.
Wait a minute.
What? You're stopping me.
Lucy, trying to control the explosive anger of Ryan, grabbed his wrist in panic and rushed out of the room. Left alone in the living room of our family home, I stood bewildered.
We'll go to the wedding instead of you, Mom.
Returning after a while with beaming smiles, the twins declared something unexpected. A few weeks later, having actually attended the wedding, the twins began to share what was happened, their eyes gleaming with excitement.
We really showed them.
Each morning, my routine is the same. I face the mirror, craft a smile, and greet myself. Good morning. I force a smile again today. Uttering only formal greetings, I am Abigail, 43 years old. At the beginning of our marriage, my husband Jack insisted that being always smiling was the most important thing, enforcing it like a ritualistic greeting. At first, I was pleased by Jack's praise. Abigail's smile is the best in the world, and continued to smile awkwardly. It felt good to smile, somehow lifting my spirits. But now,
you've got more age spots again.
Now, as soon as he sees my face, he points it out with a sharp tone. I take care of my skin diligently, but I'm always belittled by Jack.
Really, you can't even serve as a proper supporting act for me.
When I recently celebrated my birthday, instead of offering congratulations, Jack spat out that line. With an exaggerated sigh and a cold gaze colder than ice, he looked at me. There were no presents, and I was deeply shocked. wondering if my longtime husband had forgotten my birthday. As for Jack, now 57 and still appearing youthful with radiant skin, he owns a clinic specializing in cosmetic dentistry, clearly taking extra care of his looks. Today, as usual, Jack hurled insults about my appearance, not even giving me a chance to object before he hurried off to the clinic. There's a reason for his buoyant steps. The clinic is filled with beauties. According to Jack, it's natural to hire attractive women in the beauty industry. Not even trying to hide his smitten expression, Jack seems happy every day. Popular among the beautiful dental hygienists, the clinic has a predominantly female clientele. Reflecting on Jack's daily attitude, I sigh and quickly move away from the mirror. How long do I have to keep up this charade? While preparing breakfast, I mutter to myself, feeling the futility of aging alone.
Good morning.
Morning.
Entering the living room were our twin children, a brother and sister. Lucy, Ryan, good morning. Lucy, still rubbing her sleepy eyes, came over to help me prepare breakfast. Ryan, as usual, started collecting the trash around the house with practiced ease. Thanks, both of you, as always. At 17 years old, our children have grown up considerate and are always ready to help out with the chores. I've always been impressed by their initiative and efficiency in handling household tasks. Being twins, there were certainly challenges in raising them. However, Jack never involved himself in childcare, always using his busy work schedule as an excuse.
I'm providing the money, aren't I?
Every time I tried to ask for help, that was his excuse to avoid it, so I stopped expecting anything from him at some point. I had my thoughts about his attitude. Nevertheless, thanks to my kind children, I managed to have a busy yet fulfilling daily life. That routine was disrupted by a single statement from Jack.
By the way, I hired Lily as my secretary.
He seemed unusually cheerful when he told me this out of the blue. Lily is my sister's daughter, my niece.
She came crying to me because she failed to land a job after graduating from college. I felt sorry for her. It's a family favor.
A favor, but appointing a woman in her 20s as a secretary all of a sudden. Jack excitedly explained how promising Lily was for the future.
With her degree and such beauty, she'll definitely boost the morale of the company.
Hearing him praise Lily so much made me honestly quite uncomfortable. Indeed, Lily is beautiful and has been adored since she was young. Perhaps because of that, she seems to think she's better than everyone else. When they were kids, my twins, Lucy and Ryan, were often bullied by Lily, treated almost like her servants. Every time they met, Lily would pick on them, often making them cry.
She never returned my favorite pencil she borrowed.
While I was drawing, she suddenly grabbed the paper and tore it up, saying it wasn't manly.
Lucy and Ryan both believe that if others are happy, we are happy too. With their gentle natures, I've never seen them strongly oppose Lily. Moreover, Lily seemed to have used her looks to charm several boys. I've heard that my kids have been talked behind their backs by a group of guys who've become her entourage. I can't believe Jack hired her at his clinic. I was worried that the twins and Lily would have to interact more often now. But Lily has grown up, surely it will be fine. I tried to reassure myself with these thoughts, though I felt somewhat heavy-hearted. Contrary to my worries, the twins seemed unfazed by Lily's presence.
Actually, I saw Lily earlier. She's still as cute as ever.
Lucy mentioned this casually after returning from school. She saw Lily chatting with a patient in front of the clinic next to our house. Despite the past bullying, her first impression after such a long time was that Lily was cute, typical of Lucy.
Maybe we can get along this time.
Ryan had also been made to cry countless times by Lily, but seemed to want to befriend her. It's embarrassing to feel so anxious, I muttered to myself, with no one in particular. From what Jack has told me, Lily seems to be a hard worker, and she was probably just going through a rebellious phase back then. I used to think she was still a child until very recently, but time sure flies. Relieved that my worries were unfounded, I quietly smiled. However, I was quickly reminded that reality isn't always sweet. I think it was about 3 months after Lily started working at the clinic. On that chilly day when Jack finished work, he inexplicably brought Lily home with him. They walked in without a care for my presence, arm in arm, looking very much like a couple. Was this scene in front of me even real? I found myself denying it in my mind, but such escape from reality was abruptly shattered by Jack's announcement.
I'm going to make Lily my new wife.
What? His words were so unexpected that I dropped the glass I was holding. The sound of the glass shattering echoed loudly.
What? Have you gone so old that you're going deaf?
Jack, unbothered by the broken glass, looked stern.
Essentially, you're useless now.
Useless?
Who could refuse such a cute girl like Lily when she begs to be married? I'd like to see such a man.
He boasted as if he had done something great.
I've truly felt love for the first time with Jack. So sorry, Aunt Abigail.
Lily, emphasizing Aunt deliberately, balled her hands into fists, brought them to her mouth, and looked up coyly. I was too shocked to say a word.
Hug, you've become unable to speak now. Well, that's just as well.
Jack sneered and slammed the divorce papers and some money on the table.
Take this and get out of my sight.
He shouted loud enough to burst eardrums. Even I wanted to cover my ears because of the volume, yet Lily, clinging to Jack, looked at him adoringly.
Dad, what's going on?
It seemed our kids, Lucy and Ryan, heard Jack's loud voice and rushed into the room.
Dad, why with Lily?
Jack and Lily stood close together. In front of them, I stood dazed, with the divorce papers and scattered money on the floor. Seeing this, the children seemed to grasp the situation.
Mom, are you okay?
Lucy came over to me, noticed the broken glass, and quickly started cleaning it up.
I can't believe you would make a move on Lily.
Tears began streaming down Lucy's eyes.
Lily, this has to be some mistake, right?
Ryan, who had hoped to get along with Lily, asked pleadingly. However, Jack and Lily did not respond to the twins, but just stared at me as if I were trash.
Was that a bit too hard for you to understand, old lady? It's not complicated. Just pack your bags and leave the house.
Lily was overly affectionate and clingy, while Jack wore a smug expression. Watching them, I began to feel a numbing sensation spreading through my limbs. Had the shock numbed my heart too, I felt an overwhelming sense of resignation towards the two in front of me. It's enough, let's go. I felt my own voice as if it were coming from far away, and I moved slowly, robotically, one step, then another.
Mom.
We're coming with you.
With the help of my children, I gathered the few belongings we needed and left the house. I had nowhere else to go but back to my parents' house. As I headed there, the 2-hour journey felt endlessly long. Outside, a cold wind was blowing, making my frozen heart feel even more encased in thick ice. The kids, concerned for me, called a taxi, but within minutes I felt nauseous and had to get out.
Let's take it slow, at your pace, Mom.
Don't push yourself too hard.
Supported by the gentle words of my twins, I managed to barely keep my spirits up. To me, at worst, it doesn't matter. I didn't want the twins to suffer. Somehow, I made it to my parents' home and began to reflect on my life so far and what lay ahead. The stress was worse than I had anticipated, and I continued to have nightmares, whether asleep or awake. Time just passed by, and I had no energy to do anything, not even eat. I was just a source of worry for both the twins and my parents, and I felt utterly pathetic. A phone call that seemed to push me even deeper into despair came about a week after I arrived at my parents' house. It was from Jack's parents. They claimed I was a barrier to the pure love that had blossomed between Lily and Jack. Lily had been the support for Jack's heart, enduring the treatment from a demon wife. They say the significant age difference between them doesn't matter because they are deeply in love, and that's why they are getting married. My relationship with him had been broken for a long time. That's what Jack is reportedly saying. He complained that I was a cold woman who never did any housework, never showed any appreciation, and was always nagging for money. As soon as I answered the phone, I was greeted with a shriek, "What the hell is this about?" and accused of absurd things. They didn't listen to a word I said, and took turns hurling accusations at me. Overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information and the sharpness of their words, I could feel my consciousness fading. Their voices gradually became distant. Unconsciously, I hung up the phone, and then, as if my vision blurred, I collapsed to the floor.
Mom.
Ryan rushed over, nearly catching me before my head hit the floor.
Are you okay?
Slowly steadying myself, Ryan soothed my back. Thanks to Ryan's care, I didn't lose consciousness and sat down on the floor. "Thank you, I'm okay." Despite my words, I sighed deeply. Ryan, sensing my mood, looked like he was about to cry.
Mom.
Lucy burst into the room unusually loudly, holding a beautifully decorated card in her left hand. "Lucy, why are you yelling like that?" In my dazed state, surprised by her unusual behavior, I asked.
There was a wedding invitation for those two in the mailbox.
What?
Ryan quickly took the card from Lucy's hand and read it over and over again. The normally mild-mannered twins were biting their lips tightly, frowning deeply.
This is nothing but harassment.
As my head started to throb, I coldly said, "Just tear it up and throw it away."
Yeah, of course.
The moment Ryan was about to tear the card lengthwise, Lucy grabbed his hand.
Wait a minute.
What's the matter? Are you stopping this?
Lucy managed to calm Ryan down, who looked ready to explode with anger, and hurriedly grabbed his wrist before leaving the room. I was left alone in the living room of my parents' house, stunned. After a while, the two returned with beaming smiles and said something completely unexpected.
We're going to attend the wedding on your behalf, Mom.
What?
Just wait here comfortably, Mom.
After they had been sad and angry with me, this turn of events was unexpected. What could have possibly changed their minds? All I could do was look them in the eyes and trust them when they asked me to believe. Then, silently, I nodded. They left the room with an energy unlike their usual selves, and I watched their backs with mixed feelings. For the next few weeks, they seemed busier than when they were studying for their exams. However, whenever I asked what they were up to, they evaded the question. What's gotten into them? It was unusual for them to go out without giving a reason, which truly worried me. I just hope they haven't gotten into or involved in something dangerous. Not being informed about anything, all I could do was wait and trust. The following week, my resolve paid off as things began to move.
Well, we're off then,
Lucy declared meaningfully and loudly. She was dressed more sharply than usual, her makeup perfect, wearing a suit like a strategist ready for battle. Going, you mean to the actual wedding?
Yeah, just relax at home, Mom.
In the end, I never understood what the twins had planned or prepared for the wedding. These kids have never gone through a rebellious phase before, so maybe this is it now. Such thoughts flickered through my mind. But it's not like people change overnight. Maybe I've been unknowingly stressing them out. Feeling betrayed by my husband and attacked by his parents, my suspicions deepened, and I couldn't help but imagine the worst scenarios regarding my children's actions. I'm such a failure as a mother. I can only wait in agitation as time simply passes by. And then, in the evening,
We're back.
the kids returned home energetically. Welcome back. What have you been planning?
Well,
Their eyes sparkling, the twins began to recount what had happened over the past few weeks.
We really showed him.
As they started, they launched into a story that far exceeded my imagination. At that time, the twins had come up with a plan. After stopping Ryan from tearing up the card and leaving the room, Lucy reportedly shared the plan with him.
What's going on, grabbing my wrist all of a sudden? Are you on his side or something?
no, that's not it. I have a good idea.
Lucy caught Ryan's eye and seemed to have a mischievous smile.
We have to make sure it's a lovely wedding.
Lacey, that's what you mean.
The twins understood each other perfectly without needing words. Then, they secretly visited various places without telling me. For several weeks this went on, and finally, the day of Jack and Lily's wedding arrived, which was the twins' moment of truth. Dressed in suits, the twins carefully watched Jack and Lily's interactions. Jack and Lily seemed to be blessed by their friends, and the venue was filled with smiles.
The first joint task as a couple will be submitting the marriage registration.
After the ceremony, Jack declared they would submit their marriage registration, showing it off. While everyone was giving Jack and Lily warm applause, the twins gave the signal for their final move.
Well, it might be the right time now.
The constant flow of guests coming to congratulate Jack and Lily was actually convenient for their plan.
Yo, let's go.
The twins clenched their fists with determination, touched them together, and then confidently moved forward. At this moment, the tension was said to be at its peak.
Here, we have an indispensable surprise for the wedding.
Ryan and Lucy, smiling, led a group of men onto the stage. As the twins and the men advanced, Lily's face, shocked, began to contort visibly.
Since it's such a special occasion, we've invited some special guests.
Lucy spread her arms wide to present the men. At that moment, Lily couldn't hold back and seemed to scream in an ugly way. Jack, eyes wide, looked at Lily, but undisturbed. Lucy cheerfully announced,
Here we have individuals who have been closely related to the bride-to-be, Lily.
As the guests murmured in confusion, the twins began to politely introduce the men.
First, this gentleman, who has been in a relationship with Lily since her college days. They just celebrated an anniversary recently.
Ryan turned the microphone to the man, speaking in an intentionally theatrical tone to ease the atmosphere for the men to speak. The man shared that he gifted Lily a designer wallet for their anniversary.
Lily, you are so loved, aren't you?
However, the man was indignant as he had not seen Lily since the anniversary, and she had ignored his messages.
It's a terrible story, but Lily has only exploited this man's feelings.
These men were among those who harbored resentment towards Lily. During their investigation, the twins had discovered several of Lily's social media accounts.
Just after you two celebrated your anniversary, Lily posted that she sold the designer wallet for a good price.
The man, having seen Lily's post, was furious, certain it was the wallet he had gifted.
Oh, a girlfriend who sells gifts from her boyfriend. Clearly, there is no love there.
Lily trembled, but the crowd of guests in front of her prevented her from moving.
And next, this gentleman.
Taking advantage of the situation, the twins continued their narrative.
This man is the heir to a major corporate company.
All the men associated with Lily had one thing in common. It's they were all wealthy. In addition to middle-aged entrepreneurs and fiancés who were office workers, the twins took turns interviewing and meticulously introducing each man. The men shared that no matter how much they proposed to Lily, she always evaded the question, and sometimes she even called them by the wrong name, which made them feel uneasy. From the initially celebratory atmosphere, the mood among the guests shifted to suspicion and curiosity. It seems that, observing all this, Ryan whispered surreptitiously to Lucy.
It turned out just as Lucy said, didn't it?
Right? She's always had trouble with men.
From this exchange, I realized the kind of feelings Lucy harbored towards Lily. It wasn't just that Lucy had seen Lily steal her first boyfriend or flirt with other men. Every time they met, she would be harshly criticized, and they'd go around saying things like such a gloomy person never gets liked or that she was nothing but Lily's lackey. Lily also continually bothered Ryan, making him carry her bags, run errands, and treating him like a servant. I had no idea they had been treated so poorly. I regret not being able to speak up more because they were my sister's children. Yet, without blaming me, the twins said,
I couldn't stand how she used Ryan. But what I couldn't forgive even more was that I couldn't say anything to Lily.
Lucy, with a strong sense of justice, must have felt it was her mission to protect Ryan.
I have to protect Ryan.
Then I'll protect Lucy, and together, we'll protect Mom.
The twins had been conducting their own investigation into Lily's affairs without wanting to trouble me. Hugh was already exhausted. The men they met this time, upon learning of Lily's impending marriage, were happy to cooperate when the twins asked for their help. Staring straight at the stunned Jack and Lily, Lucy boldly said,
Ladies and gentlemen, it's too early to be shocked. This groom here is a big liar.
With a quick change of the slide, they projected photos of their childhood.
There are no photos of us playing with our father when we were kids.
And that's because our father pushed all child care and housework onto our mother and was hardly ever at home.
I never spoke ill of Jack. However, memories of my very tired face from time to time remained with the twins. Furthermore, even as they grew up, their relationship with Jack was minimal, feeling more like roommates who shared meals rather than a father.
As children, we thought the idea of a father was fictional.
Ryan began talking about how painful it was to write essays in elementary school.
Write about your father.
While other kids effortlessly progressed with their pencils, the twins could write nothing.
What's a father?
Even when they asked, the teacher would scold them, not understanding how they could not know, and even increased the amount of writing they had to do. If they had told me about this at home, I would have been very sad. That's why they had kept it hidden all this time.
Recently, my father has been even spreading rumors about my mother. She's always been good with the neighbors, and both Ryan and I have been well liked by neighbors, who told us that my father had been spreading rumors about our mother ever since he announced he was marrying Lily.
Feeling the impact of the guests' reactions, they delivered the final blow to Jack and Lily. They said this is the clincher, and dramatically unfolded the divorce papers.
Believe it or not, I have the divorce papers for my parents right here with me now.
As the guests turned their eyes to Jack and Lily, they started throwing shade to the two.
You all. Who do you think raised you without any hardships?
Jack shouted back, raising his voice even louder against the storm of reproach.
It was Mom who raised us.
Ryan's voice rang out clearly, even though he was neither yelling nor raising his voice.
I provided for your education and even paid for your lessons. It was all thanks to me.
Thinking that just providing money was enough, you're sorely mistaken. We never once thought of you as a father.
Lucy retorted sharply, and the two watched as Jack and Lily, their mouths quivering, were swallowed up by the crowd of guests. They then left the venue. After finishing their story, the twins smiled softly and looked at me. Both of you. Overwhelmed by the emotions welling up from deep within, I couldn't hold back any more and burst into tears, embracing them both.
That man, his handsome face was completely ruined by shock.
Ryan said proudly.
All that's left is to submit this divorce application, and it's all over.
Ryan, Lucy. My tears wouldn't stop, but they were warm tears now. The developments that followed were swift. I went to submit the divorce papers, and the divorce was successfully finalized. If I had been fretting over the future, I should have just filed them sooner. As for Lily, she ended up being arrested on suspicion of marriage fraud after one of the men filed a complaint with the police. It was a success thanks to the cooperation of those men. Not only that, but due to the scandal at the wedding, Jack's reputation plummeted. Understandably, his colleagues and the beautiful dental hygienists at the clinic harbored resentment towards him. All of them resigned, the clinic went under, and no patients would visit anymore. Furthermore, Jack and Lily were ordered to pay damages for defamation for slandering me.
Apparently, Lily really caused a scene when that man told her he wanted a divorce.
Ryan shared, having learned a bit about their aftermath from a man he met during their investigation who worked in legal services.
It was a painfully ugly fight to witness.
The fight between the selfish and self-absorbed Jack and Lily, who lost everyone due to her own actions, seemed to be an ugly clash of dark human emotions.
That man, he aged significantly from the stress.
Is that so? Reflecting on how Jack, who had always disparaged my appearance, must find his own declining looks unbearable. Maybe it's poetic justice, I thought, as I looked down. After years of suffering under Jack's cruel words, it felt like a cloud had been lifted from my heart. It wasn't long before Jack's parents came to apologize to us.
We can only compensate with money,
they said repeatedly, apologizing and promising to support that Wynn's future. They made Jack sell all his possessions and work day and night to earn tuition money for them. Thanks to that, neither Lucine or Ryan had to worry about college expenses anymore. Although my heart was torn to pieces when I was pursued for the truth during the upheaval, I understand now that it was out of a parent's desire to believe in their son. Now, the cold air that had been blowing through my heart is gone, and the frozen feelings are beginning to thaw.
Mom, I'm heading out.
Time flies, and the twins were now attending their high school graduation ceremony. I always thought of them as children, but looking at them again, they had somehow grown into adult-like faces.
I'm going too.
Ryan, following Lucy, opened the house door. A pleasant, warm breeze flowed in, enveloping me. I guess it's time for me to take a new step forward too. As I watched the twins' backs disappear, I prayed that the future holds nothing but hope